Yeah, what's happening? We about to bring that action. Gotta hold it down for my Seattle Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. We going beneath the waves. Get it hype, step onto the ice. Ready for some action. Release the Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. Going beneath the waves.
Welcome, everyone, to the Beneath the Waves podcast, your weekly source of all things Seattle Kraken and beyond. I'm Derek.
I'm Heather.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Matt.
It's episode 21, and we've got a great show for you this week, including all the latest Kraken news, a breakdown of last week's games, a check-in with Coachella Valley, and we'll take a look around the hockey world and the sound table. Heather, why don't you let us know what's happened this week with the Seattle Kraken?
All right. So we do have some injury updates. Unfortunately, Chandler Stephenson left late in the second period of the Minnesota Wild game. He did not return to that game. There was no update from Coach Dan after that game, and he said he was being evaluated. But since they were on the road, the next sort of update and evaluation would be when they were back here, which happened to be today, which is Monday, and he was in a red no contact jersey during practice. So not sure exactly what he's got going on, but we will find out and hope he's back soon, because I do think, for whatever it's worth, he does make a difference, and we miss him. So get well soon. Other news this week, Mikey Eyssimont played in his 200th NHL game against the Chicago Blackhawks. So that is cool. We love those milestones. And another big one, Jaden Schwartz played his 800th NHL game against the Minnesota Wild. So that's such a huge milestone on his way to that 1000th game. Saturday's game against the Oilers was assistant coach Bob Woods' 1000th NHL game, speaking of 1,000th, behind the bench. So that's fun too. And then I just wanted to mention this article that Jeff Baker did about Kraken Hockey Network reporter Piper Shaw. I don't really want to describe it because I don't think I will do it any justice, but I just suggest taking some time to read about it. She is just a very strong and determined person, and it was just a terrible situation she had to get out of in order to get to where she is today. And it is an article that you just should read and take in, because she's just so impressive. So we're so lucky to have her as part of our broadcast team, to be honest. Just everything she's gone through, and she's fantastic at what she does. So that is actually all the news this week. So nice and short.
Yeah, very short. And despite what your opinions are of Channy Steves, you better wish him well, because, he's a good dude. He's got some interesting teeth, but, come on.
Chompers.
Anyways. Yes,
I was just going to say, I just hope that we get some type of update. Like, I'm glad that we saw him on the ice in a red contact jersey, because when this season, especially when like coaching staff and management have been like, oh, we're going to, evaluate later or provide updates further on. We've gotten, Jordan Eberle has his pelvis completely destroyed, or, Yanni Gourde's, stomach is doing weird things. So I'm glad he's actually on the ice, because...
And it is an upper body injury. I don't think I said that today, but it is upper body. I think I said that last time.
Okay, so below the waist.
Below the waist for you Canadians. Mm-hmm. Yep. Got it.
Okay, yeah. So good thing that the news is short this week, but I wanted to switch off to a prompt that we posted on X. And it's, with the struggles of the past two seasons that the Kraken have had, who do you see as the core of this team moving forward? Who stays no matter what? And really what I mean when I say that is, like, who do you see as the players that are so invaluable to the Kraken that they will undoubtedly be a part of the team as we retool in the next few years, and why? Heather, if you just wanted to take us through what the responses were from the community, that would be appreciated. Then we can weigh in with who we agree with, disagree with, etc.
Yeah, this was actually really fun to read and respond to these. So basically, every single reply had Shane Wright's name in it. Like, I think that's so telling, but every single one, there wasn't a single person that denied him. Even David Musgrave 3 said, this team doesn't have one untouchable player. Maybe Shane Wright, if his ice time increases. I would trade anyone on the roster, honestly. So even he had Shane Wright. He's like, we could trade anybody, but guess who we can't trade? Shane Wright. What do you guys think about Shane Wright being on everyone's list?
I was just gonna
Same.
say, like, that's, I mean, if you went back to the off season before this season, when like especially you, I know Alex too, but like especially you, just so gung ho on Shane Wright, and I was like, he's had like a couple good games, but they were against weak opponents. Like this year, he definitely has stood out. So I know that this would make off season of last year Heather pretty happy to
Oh
see.
yeah.
So
And I think I would just echo that. I was very much, I think with the year that we drafted Shane Wright, I was saying right from the get go that this was a home run type of pick. And then, that first year that he got the opportunity and they didn't really give him the ice time, he was a healthy scratch here and there. And then he bounced around between Coachella, the OHL, and then World Juniors. I was still saying, this is a great pick. You just got to wait. You just got to wait. You got to wait. And I think there was a lot of people that were kind of in that weird boat where they said, I don't think so. I think he's going to be a good player, but he's not going to be one of those players. To me, I still think Shane Wright is that player. Like he is going to be better than Matty Beniers. He is going to be the top center. He's probably, in my opinion, he's going to be the captain. And he is Mr. Untouchable, in my opinion. He is the face of your franchise moving forward. Yeah, 100% agree with everybody that said Shane Wright.
I'll go ahead and own up and say that I was one of those people that wasn't sold on Shane Wright off the bat. I might chalk that up to being super, super green in the hockey world, not really knowing what's going on. I think when I looked at it and saw leading up to that draft that, oh, Shane Wright's going number one for sure. He's absolutely the top pick. And then he drops down, and then he drops down, and then he drops down. I start to wonder, like, is this kid really all that? Is he all that he was hyped up to be? And then with all the bouncing around that he did, finally, when he came up this year, I'm all in on Team Shane Wright. Whenever we get a new jersey coming out, Shane Wright 100% is next in my queue to get the name on the jersey.
So at Bortgord1 also kind of echoed similar sentiments, saying no matter what, question mark, like, are you sure you're asking that? And then went on to say Shane Wright, Joey Decord. I strongly encourage Maddie, Capo Caco, and Monty, barring a trade for a top 10-ish star. The Kraken roster is ill-matched. Florida traded Huberdeau for Kachuk and won a cup. Seattle cannot afford to have untouchables. What do you think about that?
I super agree with this one. This is the one I most agree with. So this would be my take if I had to say like a take out loud. I'm not super attached to anyone right now. Like the team is Garbo. It needs to be better. So if anyone needs to be moved around, then they need to be moved around.
For me, I definitely have a list of like untouchables. Now, having said that, I do agree with, board Gord. I'm gonna butcher that. But basically it's the truth. You shouldn't have any player that is untouchable because if something comes along, on the trade front, hypothetically speaking, I love Joey Decord, but like say like Joey Decord, if you could trade Joey Decord and a player to get X and it would benefit your team down the line, you have to consider it. And I think that's one of the things as management, and it sucks being a fan when you have to look at it like that. When you look at asset management, totally makes sense. So I think completely agree with him. Shane Wright is that player of the future. Joey Decord is your number one center. Or, sorry, wow, number one goaltender.
He wants to be center.
Yeah, he would love that.
Joey Decord's going to get a goalie goal, but he's going to play as center. But then, I think Maddie, KK, and Monty are definitely other pieces that you're going to keep.
Yeah, I think they stick around. I think we see them in a couple years
barring
for
a
sure.
trade, like if someone came up to like Francis or myself as the theoretical GM, and they're like, "Hey, we want Matty Beniers. We will give you insert name."
Bag of
And it makes
chips,
sense.
and it's done. Yeah,
And it
get
makes
him out of
sense.
here.
Yeah, then I'll be like, okay, I like Matty Beniers, but this is a great deal. Jody Cord for a center. It's happening.
Okay, so I actually loved what at San Jeromean, who's Jason M, we all know him on X, said all of our broadcast crew has to stay full stop. I loved that because I didn't even think about that, but obviously our broadcast crew is incredible, like we were talking about with Piper. And then said, I know you're most interested in players, but I think our crew helps keep our fans in the know, provide a window to the team, a connection point that many appreciate. So I actually really like that. Also went on to say Joey, Matty Beniers, Capo Caco, and Shane Wright. So, I mean, I couldn't agree more with that too.
When it comes to the broadcast crew, 100%. Because I live in Canada and because I live in Ontario, I have the unfortunate circumstance where I have to watch on Sportsnet Plus, which means I don't get to choose on who my broadcast service is. It's kind of whoever I get. When I get KHN, I am so happy because it's a great time. It's fun. It's engaging from start to finish. The amount of times that I have to watch Florida or Boston or New Jersey, and it's just boring. It's just painful. Like most times, I'll just mute the sound because I just can't tolerate it. So yeah, broadcast crew is something that as Kraken fans, we are lucky to have because it's a great content and they're all fantastic.
If we were to flash back to my Cracktivist grievance from a couple months ago when we had our Christmas special, you will recall me grieving about Sportsnet Plus and having to listen to Boston or New York, things like that. I will say, sometimes we get good stream luck up here. Like when we had that Chicago game the other day, Chicago has a great team. But like Alex said, anytime that we get KHN, I jump off the couch with excitement. And I'm going to say as well, broadcast crew, not just television. More often than not, because I have to work sometimes in the evening, I will toss on the radio broadcast, and Everett Fitzhugh, Al Kaniski, Mike Benton, they are top shelf broadcast people. So if you don't listen to the radio broadcast, I recommend maybe you just like pop an earbud for a little bit and listen, because Fitz is pretty entertaining and Al backs him up really well.
I had a few that had sort of like a similar list. So at Seattle Kraken UK, at Christy _D_, and at Seattle Kraken GM had almost the same list, those three. They had Capo Caco, Shane Wright, Riker Evans, Joey Decord, Brandon Montour, and Matty Beniers. And then at Seattle Kraken UK added Jared McCann, and Christy added Ellie Tolvanen, and Seattle Kraken GM added Yanni Newman. Oh my God. No, you've got me doing it.
We're leaving that one in.
It's happening.
No. Yanni Newman. Channeled Alex. What a mess. So yeah, so they had almost the same list. They just added a few different pieces in, which I think that is like, to me, sort of the core list also. Those specific players. And then I can see like Canner being sort of somebody you add in to like have a little bit more of an older presence. Not that he's old, but a little bit of an older presence. And Ellie Tolman is so solid. But I was thrilled to see Yanni Newman as on that list too.
I really like the Yanni Neiman pick. Newman, damn it!
Just say it
Yanni
again. Just say it again.
So I like the Newman pick because I do think that he's someone for the future. I'm going to go back on this because, and I love Jared McCann. I really love Jared McCann. But part of me wonders if he's going to be dealt this offseason. And I hate saying it. But there were rumblings, there were rumors, at the trade deadline. Ron Francis saying, we're not going to trade you. We're not going to trade him. He's safe. Part of me wonders if he's one of those players that is gone within the next year or two. He's on a great contract. His contract, I believe he has 2 years left on his deal. So he's out of those three players, McCann, and that hurts my heart to say, is one of the players that I wonder if he's going to be here long term. Just for, asset management, what you can get back for him at that cap. That's where I'm kind of sitting on the fence on that one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think at this point, and what's kind of great about all these responses is they're sort of echoing the same thing, in that we can't really afford to be super precious with some of these players. Most of these players, some are going to have to move, and we're just going to have to see how it goes. But in a similar vein, at Kevin K_92 had the same list as those three, but without Montour, but added Yanni Newman. So I love seeing his name on there because, he's only been up with us for a few games, and obviously, making such a huge difference, which we can talk about when we get to the games. But how cool to see him as now an untouchable on these lists.
Yeah, I think it's likely premature. And I would have said the same thing I would have said the same thing about Shane Wright last year, and honestly, it's probably less premature for Shane Wright. Mm-hmm. It's probably pretty premature for Newman. But then again, I could just be maximum hater. Maybe he's already blossomed, but yeah, I would just assume that, he's not gonna keep up the pace he's on. Um, yeah, and I think taking Montour off is a big mistake.
Mhm. This is going to be a controversial take. And this sounds wild to actually say because in the back of my brain, I'm fighting myself even having these thoughts. Newman replaces McCann. He's not a
Ooh.
center,
Mhm.
but he's a power play specialist. We've seen it already. He can score at the AHL level. He's proven what he can do at the NHL level. It's just a small sample size.
Mhm.
We know Jared McCann can score. He is very much a winger, not a center.
Mhm.
You get Newman in at a younger and smaller contract. You can get some great assets for McCann, and you still have that winger presence who can score and who has a big body. Like Newman can hit.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny when we were calling him like little Yanni when like he's obviously he's obviously so much larger than Yanni Gord. Like
Yeah.
that to me was cracking me up. But also the thing about him too is he almost was like too ready to still be at the AHL level. Like he was ready to move up. So I think it is a small sample size. We're gonna have to see, but he's earning these games to keep staying up. He's
For
earning
sure.
that spot.
Yeah,
For
Yeah.
he's
sure.
got 4 points in 6 games.
Mhm.
Like I said, small sample size, but like those, the way he's been playing is showing those sample sizes. Like when Wright came up, when Beniers came up, like he's showing that. So, part of me wonders he's definitely not going to play with Coachella next season. Like he's pretty much cemented himself with the Kraken as
Yeah.
long as he doesn't have a setback. Like
Yeah,
he's going
that'll
to
be
go back to
cool.
Coachella. He's going to tear it up during the playoffs, and he's going to make the roster for next season. Like that's my guess.
We also had at Sundance Kid 1701, who had a different configuration of this popular list with just Maddie Beniers, Shane Wright, Capo Caco, Jared McCann, and Brandon Montour. So a similar configuration, but just cut down a little bit. So I can see that too. That's another one that kind of fits in there. And then our friend George Costanza at George C2476523 said Shane Wright, Berkeley Catton, Brandon Montour, Maddie Beniers, Joey Decord, and our number one pick from this year. However, very few should be considered untouchable. Shane, Catton, and our number one draft pick this year. This team needs a change, and little should be off the table. So, and a different pick here because now we've got Berkeley Catton in the mix too. What do you think about that?
I think so. I think when you look at that, and I think we've kind of echoed this throughout all these messages and responses that other people have given us, and I think we're kind of all on the same wavelength. Like I do think that Shane is an untouchable. Like if you can name anyone on this team, Shane's the untouchable. Catton is going to be the interesting one because we haven't seen him play at the NHL level. Like he's a center. He's small though, so he could play wing. But I also will say, young talent, young prospect could fetch a lot in a trade. So I'm not saying that you're going to keep him. I'm not saying you're going to trade him. You have to leave that up for to see what's going to happen. And then we don't know who we're going to pick in this draft. Like, are we going to pick another center? We might.
Absolutely.
Of course we are. Why wouldn't
Probably,
we?
but we might go for a defenseman. So like you got to really look at who we're going to go for.
Let's not get our hopes up again.
Yeah, I
So
don't want to be disappointed.
But I completely agree with Alex there. Catton is posting absolutely unreal numbers at the WHL level right now, but that does not always translate to the AHL or NHL level, as we've seen, kind of recent with Jager Furkes, like a very similar situation, and so there might be an argument to sell high. But I mean, it's really just comes down to, do you think that your team has more value out of a prospect that might turn out or somebody else's team? And at this point, we might as well grow our prospects and just reap what we sow and just draft and not even trade. I'm just so done. Just wait until all the players are good.
Um, so at that underscore gray underscore beard had an extension and like thoughtful list when he said, so Joey, right, Catton, and then he had sort of a list of like Coco, Saranin, Vendenpa, and Vyazavoy, and then also had like a separate list. So that's one list. The second list was KK, Monty, ET, MB, Canner, and this is only if we figure out coach/team/strategy, Price and Jugnoth. And then his sleeper picks were Leighton Road, Villeneuve, Mittinen, and Nilsson. And then finally said, I think the Kraken ownership/GM/coaching personnel/players/identity is a mess. If it's disco, go younger. Which, I mean, I I have a hard time disagreeing with much of that. And I even responded because I was like, we've talked about identity so much recently with this team and how, they really, it's a focus they need to have. And I think I think at some points we've seen building blocks of it, but it's not quite formulated completely.
I feel like it's kind of a chicken versus the egg thing
Mm,
sometimes with identity because like if you have a team of a bunch of second or third line players, right? And they all suck. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you have a team of a bunch of second or third line players that all suck. But if that team, starts distributing the scoring and they end up going to the playoffs, then the Kraken have developed an identity when they go to the playoffs. Oh, we're a
right.
very deep team. We attack in waves.
Waves.
And it's like, so it's like, I don't know. It's like kind of the same team, but they aren't
Yeah.
doing good. So I think if you find wins, the identity part, I don't know if you need that to get the wins or if the
Mm,
wins form the identity. I don't know.
mm,
No, you need an identity. Like 100% you need an identity. This team doesn't have an identity, and we've talked about this for weeks now. This team very much is we are an expansion team that got thrown into a blender, and this is the result of what got shot out. We've kind of acquired players to be like, oh, maybe we can figure out the identity with, signing X and, trading for Y. But we're still very much like this is our expansion team, and our core of the expansion team is still from the expansion. When you
yeah.
really look at it, like there are some players that we signed and people that we actually picked up in the expansion draft that are still embedded within the system. But we have pieces on the outside that we should give opportunities to. Shane Wright playing 15 minutes still and was playing on the first line. I'm still not over that.
Oh no.
Things like that. Like
Yeah.
this team doesn't have an identity. And I think once the identity is figured out to a point, things will start making more sense. So if an identity is figured out, players will start, have more purpose and want to play at a higher level, which would help the coaching personnel because they'll be able to communicate with the players. And that means management will know exactly what's going on because they know exactly how this team is playing. Because right now, this team is so Jekyll Hyde. Ownership just kind of has to figure out what ownership wants because I think we're hearing two or three different things now when it comes to ownership, and that's the Kraken and in a huge ball of chaos. It really all comes down from from identity, and we still don't have that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I can see what you're both saying because it's like when the playoff year we did have like the wins we got were because we attacked in waves. We rolled all the lines. Like it was because of that. But I mean, that it had to start somewhere. Like, did it start there? But also, that was the identity, right? We were a deep team. That was the identity. So I see, I get it, I get it. But I do think they are floundering a little bit in that regard. Like, I do think whether or not it's chicken or egg, I do think somebody needs to fully step up and sort of like, you know, be that person that is setting the standard. And I think, Eberle's been a great choice for that. It's just unfortunate that he had so much time where he wasn't on the ice. Because I do think no matter if he was talking to them or FaceTiming or whatever, it's not the same as being there on the ice, being there for practice, all of that. So I do think they need a little bit of that. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And I mean, 4 years in, that's still, to me, that's still extremely new. And so I think, like you're saying, with the expansion, so many of them are these sort of like misfits that we we gathered, and now we're bringing people in that their team is choosing, right? And so that kind of builds an identity in itself when we're actually like choosing those players, like hand picking and getting them from trades and all of that too.
Yeah, we're definitely in that transitional period
Hmm.
where we're no longer the expansion team. We're
Yeah.
coming into our own, but in doing so, we're like I said, we're still trying to figure out what that identity is. At first, we were the expansion team. Now we don't know, and eventually, we're going to figure out that we are this. When it comes to leadership, I think Eberle is perfect for that, and I do think that Eberle is that perfect piece that's right in the center that's going to transition the leadership from Eberle to whoever that may be.
Yep.
I definitely think there's a lot of actual players that can lead this team, but it's going to be interesting to see who they choose. Do they want someone young? Do they want someone like Brandon Montour, Shane Wright, Matty Beniers? Like, there are a couple candidates. For me, I would definitely say that Shane Wright or Brandon Montour would be the next captain, just from what I've seen. But who's to say we bring somebody in or somebody comes up out of nowhere and becomes that leader? But I definitely would. I'm still going to highlight Shane Wright, because you even watch him on the bench and he's talking to some of the older guys, and he's talking to them like he's been here for 13, 14 years, and you're like, buddy, you're not there yet, but you act like a
brand new
leader.
baby.
So I think that's definitely where it comes to like that transitional period. We're in that weird, I don't know where we are right now, and Eberle's doing a fantastic job, without even being on the ice. He's really taken on that leadership role of being like, let's figure this out. We got to figure it out, and we'll go from here.
I definitely think with the leadership context of this, we can have sort of a two-phased approach with it. So I talked before about Mark Giordano in the past and how he was the captain for 3.5 months before we sent him away, however long it was. He was like here and then he was gone. But I think our short-term leadership has to be Jordan Eberle for at least a couple more years. He has one more year on his deal next year. I could see him maybe stacking one more year after that to maybe retire in Seattle. We'll see what happens there. But in the long term, I really think that Brandon Montour is going to be that leadership guy for us. We talked, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, Heather mentioned how post-trade deadline, Monty and Maddie and Ebbs got the group together and had a little locker room chat, kind of dialing everyone in and finding out what's going on to kind of set the tone for the remainder of the year. And I think that makes Monty, like, I want to call him like a letterless leader. He doesn't have an A, he doesn't have a C, but he's stepping up, and he has kind of that hockey background with being a Stanley Cup winner, that he kind of, he knows what he's talking about. He's out there practicing what he preaches. So I would like to see, if not, like, I still think it's too soon for Maddie, maybe Shane. I like Alex's idea of having Shane as captain. I think that could be awesome in the future, but I think Brandon Montour should be the next one to take the helm after Jordan Eberle's done.
One last post from X was from @DaveThu, and he said kept it simple with just Shane Wright and Brandon Montour. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think these lists were fantastic. Like, I can't really argue with much of them. Like, I think it was so interesting, and I really appreciated all the thoughtful comments too of people taking time to like really think about it and say why, or just put these lists together. So that was really cool. So thank you everyone who responded on X. We appreciate that so much. It was really fun. Hopefully you appreciated our responses back too. Like, I really enjoyed doing some of that, and we'll look for more in the future.
This NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going, but that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out, and games left for you to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co. NHL.co/audio. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. NHL and NHL team marks are property of the NHL and its teams. Copyright NHL 2025, all rights reserved.
And that leads us to the 3 games that we played since the recording of the last podcast episode and the recording of today's podcast episode. And that was game 69 versus the Chicago Blackhawks. Okay, that was a good transition. I'm going to keep that.
I like it.
And that was game 69 versus the Chicago Blackhawks, which was a 6-2 win. Game 70 versus the Minnesota Wild, which was a 4-0 loss. And game 71 versus the Edmonton Oilers, which was a 5-4 loss. Now, let's go through these and give some talking points, some, summaries of what we saw, because some good and some absolutely atrocious here, and then some mid. So, what are we thinking?
All right, so to open up my takes, I just want to say, man, do I ever love when we play against Chicago. A couple months ago, we talked about our Mount Rushmore Seattle Kraken games, and I highlighted a previous Chicago game where we absolutely unloaded on them offensively. I'm not going to lie, this game started pretty rough, and then things got a whole lot of fun. 6 unanswered goals, unless you're on the receiving end, is always a good time. Lara's rebounding to have a 3-point night after inadvertently putting one in off of his own skate to start was a great redemption arc for him. We love to see that. And as we get closer to the end of the season, I'm starting to closely consider my nominees for the 2025 Squiddy Awards. Jared McCann's goal in this game is a goal of the year contender for me after he knocked the puck out of midair. It was like at his chest. It was well up in the air, taking that pass from Andrei Burakovsky, and he just cruised in and got it past Spencer Knight. Lastly, Jordan Eberle is back in the goal-scoring column of the score sheet, and I absolutely love it. And also, do we mention that there was a Stevie assist on this? Will that get people riled up again? How about that? Luckily for me, on Wednesday night during the Wild game, I had to work my part-time job that evening. So I was out at the bar I work at, enjoying some delicious tacos and company of others, while my watch buzzed 3 times in 4.5 minutes, just saying, "Goal Wild, Goal Wild, Goal Wild," and that was really heartbreaking. So I'm glad I at least didn't have to watch and experience that, because I feel in the grand scheme, not a whole lot missed on that one. Now, coming into Saturday's game against Edmonton, I was feeling pretty hopeful. It was announced on Friday that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl would not be in the lineup for the Oilers, so in that moment, I frantically ran up 3 levels at the school that I worked at to put in a Tim Hortons coffee and donut wager on the line against a coworker of mine who's an Oilers fan. I knew we were either going to get absolutely blown out and pumped 9-0, or we'd actually have a chance at winning, so putting up a donut didn't seem that bad. This game was rather entertaining. My excitement started before puck drop when I saw the lineups get announced. Shane Wright on the top line with Schwartz and Ebbs. When I saw that, I thought there was a lot of promise in those shakeups. This was a very fun, competitive game. Strong showing from Kakko with those 2 goals. Berkey made a very rare appearance in the goal column, which kind of puts them all on our radars again. And the thing that really stood out to me in this one was the 4th line. I wasn't originally hyped on Mikey E when he came over from the Tampa Bay trade, but he's growing on me. He's filling that scrappy 4th line role well, I feel. And when you match him up with the likes of Ty Cartier and John Hayden, I think we have the makings of Spicy Line 2.0. You're never going to have really that same energy as having Tanev and Yanni Gord stirring stuff up. But this is pretty close, I'd say, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. You have to love the effort put forward by the Kraken in this one, scratching and clawing to the very end, trying everything they could do to tie things up until the very last second. We've said a few times over these past few weeks, I'm fine with losses to end out this season as long as they're giving us entertaining losses. Minnesota Wild game? No, that's not it. But that game against the Oilers, that was a fun one to watch.
So I do love the fact when we play Chicago, because for some reason we decide that we are going to be like an NHL All-Star team. And then there's the Chicago Blackhawks. I don't know what's going on with that, but like Adam Larson's great. Jordan Eberle's fantastic. Shane Wright is just Shane Wright. Like him getting 2 goals, can't complain. Yeah, we played excellent against, the Chicago Blackhawks, and it was a fun game to watch. Like I stayed up the whole time to watch it, and it was fantastic. And then it came to Minnesota. And I don't know why I decided to stay up for the full 60 minutes. It was like 1 a.m. and I was like, maybe we'll score. Maybe, just maybe we'll score. And we didn't score. And I just was like, oh, well, that was fun. And went to bed. And then game 71 against the Edmonton Oilers, I fell asleep in the first period, and it was a good game. And it's kind of sad that I fell asleep in the first period because when I woke up in the morning, I was like, oh, I wonder what the score was. I'm like, oh, we lost 5-4. It looks like it was a very competitive game and we didn't get points. Like, this is the best type of result that we could want at this time of the season. So, Derek said it perfectly. This is like the most fun, depressing, and then mid type 3 game set that we had because we outplayed and outworked the Blackhawks. We got absolutely trashed by the Wild, and we had fun against Edmonton and just lost in the end. So it is what it is. I got nothing to really complain about because we're in the final stretch here, and we pulled out 2 points out of the possible 6. Can't complain. Some people, Derek, Heather, Matt, would say, well, we're at like 77.4 points expected, so it's better than 76. So, it is what it is. I'm happy with how they're playing. Let the kids play. I'm hoping we'll see Berkeley Canton up in the next little bit. Like, I'd like to see him play a couple of games before the WHL playoffs. I'm not too sure how it works. So yeah, just some options perhaps. Or if kind of going back, I don't think Canton could come up if they get eliminated from the playoffs. But if that does happen, I'd be pretty happy to see. So yeah, overall, can't complain. It was a good week of hockey.
Breaking news, by the way, just checked Money Puck, the playoff odds, and the Kraken are projected to have 75.8 points. So that's actually zero point 0.2 points less than you predicted. So I don't know why you're cheering right now. For everyone listening, Alex is cheering
He's
profusely.
very excited about this.
Yeah, and
Been
like, dude, you're
grilled for,
literally 0.2 points off. I don't know what you're celebrating.
Been grilled for 71 games, like 71. And I just want to preface like that whole like let's guess how many points we're gonna get. All 3 of you were like 90, 92, 90,
I said 95.
95, and I'm just like, okay, let me be realistic here.
We were all
Everyone's gonna hate
we were all
me.
pointing fingers at you. We were like,
I
you're the
know.
hater. You're the
I
hater.
know,
Oh.
and now we're here, and it's like I
We
didn't
were
want
so
to be
young.
right.
We were
I didn't
so
want to be
young
right.
and naive. So
Stay
hopeful.
tuned.
This is what happens when you watch Toronto hockey for like 20 years. You just
You
know.
gotta, he's clairvoyant. You gotta stay tuned for this offseason when Alex perfectly predicts next season too. You'll know how the season's gonna end.
Yeah.
But yeah, these 3 games, like Alex said, or like I said originally, I guess, really good, really bad, and then mid. What's crazy is the expected goals just doesn't track that at all. So in the Chicago game, we were down to Chicago, 3.86 to 2.19 expected goals. So like a 4-2 expected goal difference. We had Joey Decord in net that night, so maybe that explains that. But we were also shooting well above expected. In the Minnesota game, this gets a little complicated here. We had a 3.06 to 2.56 expected goal lead. And so we get shut out. And so that's brutal. And then I think we had Philly Groose taken for that game, right? Is that correct? Okay,
Yeah.
so on 2.56 expected, he allowed 4. Not great, but also like not ECHL anymore, really. So whatever.
Did you see I think it was after the second goal, they panned over to the bench and there's Joey sitting on the bench and he made this little like look. He was like,
Was it
and
like
I
the
was like,
Dringer
Joey
one?
looks terrified. Like Joey thinks he's going in the net.
Oh no. And then lastly for the Edmonton game, which was the 5-4 loss, the Kraken led almost 5-3 in expected goals. So really just not seeing the expected goals play out in the way they're supposed to, which is concerning for multiple reasons. Like you're shooting less than you less well than you should. You're allowing more goals than you should be. So pretty bad when that happens because it is based off of like league average and like the average players. Not great. And then in terms of my vibe or my not my vibe check, in terms of my talking points, I would say like pretty much exactly what Matt said. The losses aren't phasing me at this point. So long as there are things that show we are trying to develop a decent cohesive structure or like identity, like we were talking about earlier, going into next year. Make the most of the last 11 games we have left. Get as close as we can to a first overall pick. Just have fun, and like Alex said last week, take the pressure off, and just remember what it feels like to have chemistry and work systems correctly and go out there and score a bunch but lose by 1 goal in regulation, so we don't get any points, like Alex said.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't like going down by two to any team, especially like the Blackhawks. Like that was sort of I was getting kind of sad, but like then 6 unanswered goals by us is like incredible. Like you can't like help but be excited for that. 2 goals for Shane Wright in that game. I'm just gonna lose my ish when he gets a hat trick. I mean, I'll lose it. I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna have to dance or something. I just don't know, but hopefully soon. But I'm very excited for him. That his first goal of that game was the first one that he's had since being moved to the fourth line. Obviously, that's not where he should be. And I was really thrilled with the lines in that last game. A 3-point game for Adam Larson, and that's his second of this season. So that's cool. And his goal in that one was sort of the momentum shifter. So love that. Love 2 goals in 26 seconds. Basically they played how they should play against a team they should beat. Like that's really what happened in Chicago. The Wild game, I don't know. I don't really have much to say. It just was, I don't know. They were missing players too, and like we couldn't score against them at all. I don't know. It was a terrible game. It was the 7th time the Kraken have been shut out this season. So I don't know what else to say about that one. Just it was a sad game. The Oiler game, you know what? I think the best part about it was that they just didn't give up. Even that Schwartzy goal at the end to pull within 1, that was like super exciting. So great game. I mean, and like Derek said, like that's what we want. Lose by 1, right? Like that's great, fun, competitive hockey. I love the lines. Like Matty Beniers having 2 fins on his line was fun. We heard that that Capo Caco was translating when he would talk to Yanni Newman and translating back to Matty. So I thought that was kind of fun too. So Capo having 2 goals is fun. It was also his second multi-goal performance as a Kraken. He didn't have any of those in the last 2 seasons with the Rangers. He also has 25 points in his 38 games with the Kraken. So, I mean, lots to really love with that. Also, Yanni had a multi-assist game, and he became the 3rd Kraken player who was 20 years old or younger to do so. The other 2, obviously, Maddie and Shane. So I think that was also very fun. Like, I'm loving watching these players step up, these younger players. It's just really fun to watch. So I think that, that's a great thing to look forward to, as we're talking about these players that we're keeping. I mean, how fun, like, to watch these players play together. So I think overall, like, I don't know, it was a good week of hockey. I don't, like Alex said, I don't have much to complain about here. Just, except the Wild game, I would have liked at least a goal, but otherwise, like, all in all, pretty fun hockey to watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say, anything where the Kraken are losing and they haven't scored a goal, it sends me back to Ottawa, pleading at the Canadian Tire Center just for a goal. So, anytime we lose, like, and we get shut out, it just sends me right back to Ottawa, and it's terrible. But we are gonna move forward because we're gonna go talk about some of the young Kraken. They play a little bit further down in the desert, so we're gonna get into the desert dialogues. So the Firebirds played 3 games last week. First game was March 19th against the Henderson Silver Knights in a 2-1 loss. This was Fuego's birthday game, so that's fun. And the warm-up jerseys were actually amazing. If you haven't seen them, go to the Firebirds Twitter page. They're fun. Honestly, I would have bought one if I could, but they are. I think they were on for auction and ridiculous pricing, and they were American pricing. So like, literally would have cost me an arm or a leg. There were a lot of mascots attending this game for his birthday too. The Firebirds' only goal came at 17 minutes and 21 seconds into the 3rd period from Brandon Bureau, and the assists were Logan Morrison and David Goyette. We like seeing those guys get on the board, but that's about it for this one.
Then they played March 21st at the Calgary Wranglers. This was a 3-1 loss. Sort of a low-scoring, low-activity game. It was late in the first when the Wranglers scored the first goal of the game, and then again late in the second when they scored again. Ian McKinnon had a huge fight, like maybe trying to shift some momentum. He and the Wranglers player both got game misconducts for it. So that is on Coachella Valley's Twitter if you want to go look, because I don't know, it was a pretty intense fight. It was pretty fun. The only goal was from Mitchell Stevens. That's my guy. It was at 18-15 into the third. Luke Henman had his 10th assist on this one, and Ryan Winterton had his 18th assist, which is wild. He's just been slowly racking up the assists, and I wasn't totally paying attention, so that's really cool. Wranglers hit the empty net, put that game away, but yeah, we're watching these players sort of just notch these points, which is kind of fun.
And then the final game was March 23rd at the Calgary Wranglers in a 4-2 win. They split this mini series with a big win against the Wranglers. Ben Myers was back for this one and had the first goal of the game. Ryan Jones and Ville Otavainen had the assists. Max Lajoie scored the only goal of the second period. Ty Nelson had his 21st assist, and Brandon Biro had his 26th assist on this goal. Biro's been really good. 26 assists. I know he's an AHL player, but still, that's exactly what you need in the AHL. Ryan Winterton made the score 3-0 for the Firebirds at 6:48 into the third. Logan Morrison had his 25th assist of the season, and David Goyette had his 10th. Logan Morrison really liked his play. It's been quiet this year, not like last year. Last year, he was really their front net presence, very much like one of the main players for the Firebirds, but he's been very quiet this year, but he's been very effective, which is something that you like to see. Not talked about as much as he was last year, but still a good player. Kind of teetering on that Firebird Kraken, but we'll probably stay with the Firebirds again next year is my guesses. But that was 3 unanswered goals for Coachella, and you love to see that. So the fourth goal came from David Goyette, and the third was assist from Jacob Melanson and Charlie Wright. Just a really fun game for the Firebirds and a win that they desperately needed, especially in this division.
And the Firebirds play Saturday, March 29th and Sunday, March 30th, both at the Chicago Wolves. So one of those little mini series. Top Firebirds this week, we have Ben Myers with 41 points in his 47 games played. Logan Morrison, who we were just talking about, has 36 points in his 61 games played. Ryan Winterton and Max Lajoie each have 32 points in 50 and 60 games played, respectively.
The AHL standings is absolutely chaotic. So if you don't follow it, download the app, take a look for it yourself. It's absolutely anarchy. This division just stays extremely close. So Coachella currently is in fourth with 73 points in 62 games played. They're right behind the Abbotsford Canucks, who have 73 points in 61 games played. However, the Ontario Reign are in second place with 74 points in 60 games played, and the Colorado Eagles really pulled ahead with 80 points in 60 games played. But you also have to watch out for the Calgary Wranglers, who are right behind Coachella with 71 points in 62 games. It's neck and neck.
It's so close.
And it's just, it really is coming down to if you lose a game, you're looking at the standings. Yeah. Because everything's switching. You win a game, you could go up to second. If you lose, you could drop down to fifth. It's probably one of the crazier seasons that I've seen with this division. Like normally the Firebirds have just kind of taken off. This season, there's a lot of evenly matched teams in this division. So I think it's going to come down to the wire. But fun hockey to watch. They really are missing Newman. I will say that that's been one player that has been missing because he's been playing with Kraken, and they've been missing his scoring touch.
And off that's going to take us to the sound table. The Sound Table is our weekly roundtable look around the hockey world outside of the Kraken organization. Starting off with topic number 1, mark your calendars, everybody. Gary Bettman announced on Tuesday that the puck will drop on the 2025-26 NHL season on October 7th, 2005. I don't know about all of you, but I think I feel a cold coming on and might just need to take that day off of work. In addition to this announcement, the commissioner has several other tidbits to share. According to Frank Saravalli, Bettman also said to the media that he's not a fan of extending the length of 3-on-3 overtime because of the deterioration of ice conditions and wear and tear on the players. Bettman said the NHL is reevaluating the 2026 All-Star Game format in New York because the NHL has raised the bar with what an All-Star Weekend might look like as a result of the Four Nations tournament. Finally, he said the NHL looks to sit down with the NHLPA at the start of April to begin CBA discussions. The NHL also announced last week the next season's Global Series game will be held on November 14th and will be contested between the Pittsburgh Penguins and Nashville Predators in Stockholm, Sweden. prior to Chicago's game against St. Louis on Saturday, Blackhawks forward Pat Maroon announced his retirement from the NHL at the end of this season. Maroon is a 14-year veteran in the NHL and a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. Now, we always love a good, heartwarming story, and this one last week came out of Canadiens' Twitter. Last week, Montreal Canadiens forward Brendan Gallagher announced that on his Instagram that his mother had passed away from battle with breast cancer. A Habs fan named Lucy Lachange, at LucyLou08 on X, posted a picture of a Gallagher Hockey Fights Cancer warm-up jersey that she acquired in 2022. In a subsequent tweet, Lachange said, "Dear at BGalley17, I feel like this jersey should belong to you. You wore it in warm-up 2022 just before they stopped making those, so this is very unique, like your mom was. If you want it, it's definitely for you to keep as a memory jersey." This tweet did eventually make its way to Gallagher's attention, and he responded with, "That's incredibly kind of you, thoughtful and really appreciated. How about a jersey swap on ice on April 16th? You absolutely love to see a kind-hearted gesture like this, both by the fan and the player, to make an incredibly impactful memory for both involved." All right, now it is milestone time. With his goal on Tuesday night against the New York Islanders, Pittsburgh captain Sidney Crosby has passed Wayne Gretzky for 4th most points all time with one franchise, recording his 1,070th point across 20 seasons. Little side anecdote here. Gretzky achieved 1,669 points in just 9 seasons with the Edmonton Oilers. Crosby's next targets are now Mario Lemieux with 1723, Steve Yzerman with 1755, and Gordie Howe with 1,809 points. Winnipeg Jets goaltender and surefire Vezina favorite for this year, Connor Hellebuyck has become only the 14th goalie in NHL history to record multiple 40-plus win seasons. We have a new record in the NHL this week, as on Saturday, Vancouver Canucks forward Kiefer Sherwood set a new NHL record for most hits in a single season at 384 and counting. Still plenty of games to go, and I'm sure there's still plenty of hits for him to dish out, so expect that number to only climb higher and higher. And lastly, on Thursday, Carolina Hurricanes defenseman Brent Burns played his 911th consecutive NHL game. This moved him into 5th place on the NHL Ironman list. Next on his path is Gary Unker, who recorded 914 consecutive games. Provided he stays healthy, the 40-year-old Burns will be able to capture 4th place on the list this week. Only 152 games to go until he'd capture the number 1 spot held by Phil Kessel. Now, in our usual closers here, there's no PWHL Takeover Tour news this week, but we did see a PWHL first, as the New York Sirens' Abby Rock recorded the first ever Michigan goal in PWHL history. It seemed only fitting that a Michigan native pulled off the Michigan goal. And as we always close, we have the Ovi record watch. Alexander Ovechkin now sits at 888 goals, only 7 away from beating Wayne Gretzky's record of 894. He will need to accomplish this in 6 games or less to accomplish the feat faster than Gretzky, so that window is quickly closing in on him. Bonus achievements for Ovi this week include having the most 35 goal seasons in NHL history at 15, and passing Wayne Gretzky's record for the most goals in a single calendar month, having recorded 159 goals in the month of March across his career. And that will conclude this week's Sound Table. Heather, would you like to let the folks know what our week ahead looks like?
Absolutely, I would. So the Kraken play on Tuesday, March 25th at the Calgary Flames. This is a special stream game. I'll tell you in just a second. They play Thursday, March 27th at the versus the Edmonton Oilers, and Saturday, March 29th versus the Dallas Stars. So they are coming home to play a couple games. And I know that the stream game that we're doing on Tuesday, March 25th is a very special one. So Matt, do you want to tell them a little bit more about why?
Yeah, so with our stream on Tuesday, while we watch the Kraken take on the Flames, it's going to be a special one around here as we are doing our second charity stream. Our first one was a great success, so now we're back at it again. This time looking for a great Kraken performance to raise money for the Kidney Foundation of Canada. If you missed last week's podcast or you didn't see it on our Twitter or Instagram feeds, every year I fundraise in the months of April and May for the Kidney Foundation of Canada. My wife has been living with end-stage kidney failure for the last probably close to 10 years or so, and for quite a bit of time after that has been waiting on the transplant list as well, hoping to get a transplant. So every year in April and May, we try to raise as much money as possible for the Kidney Foundation of Canada's Kidney Walk that takes place in June here where we live. And so we always try to find fun ways to make this happen. So I'm going to be doing this with the same kind of concept we did for our previous drive. I'll be donating money to the cause based on things like shots on goal, goals scored, if a fight breaks out, if our goalie puts up a shutout, and a bonus donation for each of the BTW picks. So what I mean by that is each of us is going to pick one player, and if they score at any point, that is an extra $10 added into the pot. I will be putting my money on Jordan Eberle to score, and I'm curious, do you want to declare right now, who do you three want to make as your BTW picks?
So for my BTW pick, I'm going to go with the Finnish sniper, Yanni Newman, because why not? He can score, he can clearly assist, and he can hit. But I think he's going to get a goal or two, because why not?
I like it. For my BTW pick, I am going to surprise no one and pick Shane Wright, because I wouldn't be me if I didn't pick Shane Wright every time. So Shane Wright.
And I probably have the least inspired pick here, but I'm just gonna go with Matty Beniers because every time I bet against him, he does good. And hopefully with this donation fundraiser on the line, he steps up. Last time the Kraken couldn't even get a shot on net to help us out for our fundraiser, but I hopefully Beniers, performs.
And not only are these three helping me out with those picks, we also got some friends of the pod weighing in with some picks of their own. Jeff and Joey over at the Kraken Pod are predicting Shane Wright to score a goal, and Mike from Sasquatch NHL is making a selection as well, although right now his just says TBD, so I'm hoping that he's poring over the lineup sheet, seeing what's going to be the most beneficial result there. If you would like any more information about this fundraising, about this drive, you can check out our link, bit.ly/btwkidney. I'll put it in the show notes as well, and you can find it on our Twitter feed. Hope to see some familiar names in chat, hope to see a great performance out of the Kraken, and hope to raise a lot of money for this cause. And with that, Derek, could you let the people know where they can find us online?
Absolutely, Matt, I would. First off, make sure to go subscribe to the YouTube and go to our store at bit.ly/btw store. I think we have free shipping until tomorrow, which is the 25th. Bunch of cool designs in there. Monty Mania, Joey Decord.
Price is right.
Yes, we got the Shane Wright. The Price is Right. Go check that out. And then, so thanks for tuning in. We hope you make the most of your day. From Beneath the Waves, we're sending good vibes your way. And for all things Kraken, find us at BTWSEA.
Going beneath the waves.